Hello, everyone. I'm James, and welcome to a story so shocking, so twisted, it'll leave you questioning everything you know about justice. Imagine this: a man, Mark Thompson, a loving husband, is strapped to an execution table, a needle in his arm, seconds away from death. He's convicted of murdering his wife, Anna. The evidence: blood, a knife, a history of arguments. The town believes he's a monster. But here's the bombshell: Anna isn't dead. She's alive, hiding in another city, orchestrating the whole thing. My God, how could someone be so cruel? Picture a quiet little town, Willow Creek, where everyone knows your name. It's the kind of place where secrets don't stay buried long. Mark and Anna seemed like the perfect couple. He ran a small construction company, pouring his heart into every project. She was his accountant, sharp and charming, always smiling at church on Sundays. But behind closed doors, something sinister was brewing. What could drive a woman to frame her own husband for murder, money, revenge, or something even darker? On a chilly October night, Anna vanished. Police found blood, so much blood, in their cozy home. It was hers, confirmed by DNA. A knife stained red lay in the backyard trash. Mark's fingerprints were on it. He swore he was innocent, his voice cracking, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't do it. I loved her," he cried. But the town turned on him. The media screamed, "Kill her." Anna's parents wept on TV, begging for justice. Who wouldn't believe Mark was guilty? Here's where it gets insane. The case wasn't just about blood or a knife. It was about trust that Anna betrayed. She didn't just disappear. She planned it. Every drop of blood, every piece of evidence was part of her cold, calculated trap. Why $5 million? That's right, millions she siphoned from Mark's company, funneled into a secret account. Anna wasn't a victim. She was a mastermind, willing to let her husband die to cover her tracks. Can you imagine the betrayal? As Mark faced the death penalty, the clock ticked down. The town demanded justice. The jury saw a monster. But what if they were wrong? What if the real monster was out there living a new life, sipping coffee under a fake name? How could the system fail so badly? In the final moments, as poison hovered inches from Mark's veins, a phone call changed everything. Anna was alive. The truth was out. But was it too late? This is a story of lies, greed, and a man who nearly paid the ultimate price. It's about a woman who played God with her husband's life. Stick with me as we unravel this nightmare piece by piece. You won't believe what comes next. How far would someone go for money? And what happens when the truth comes knocking? Let's dive in. If you're gripped by this story, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Join our community to uncover more jaw-dropping true crime tales like this one. Your support keeps us diving deep into the darkest corners of justice. Don't miss the next part. Trust me, it's wild. The night of October 12th in Willow Creek was one nobody would forget. A cold wind swept through the sleepy town, and in the cozy Thompson home, something horrific was unfolding, or so it seemed. At 2 a.m., a neighbor, woken by a strange noise, peeked out her window. She saw nothing but shadows. By morning, the police were swarming the house. Blood stained the living room floor, splattered across the walls like a gruesome painting. A kitchen knife, its blade crusted with dried blood, sat in the backyard trash can. My God, it looked like a slaughter. But where was Anna Thompson? Her body was gone, and Mark, her husband, was about to face a nightmare he never saw coming. The police knocked on Mark's door at dawn. He opened it bleary-eyed, still in his pajamas. "What's going on?" he stammered, his voice thick with confusion. The officers didn't waste time. "Where's your wife, Mark?" they demanded. His face paled. "Anna, she was here last night. I don't know where she went, but the blood told a different story. DNA tests confirmed it was Anna's. The knife had Mark's fingerprints, because of course it was from their kitchen. He'd chopped vegetables with it 100 times, but to the police it was a murder weapon. How could he explain this? Mark's story was shaky. He said he and Anna had a small argument about work. She'd been stressed about the company's finances. He went to bed alone, assuming she'd cool off in the guest room. When he woke up, she was gone. No note, no phone call, nothing. I thought she left to clear her head, he pleaded, his hands trembling. But the cops weren't buying it. Blood doesn't lie, they thought. And Mark's lack of an alibi made it worse. He'd left work early that day, and no one could confirm where he was after 8 p.m. Was he hiding something? Or was he just a man caught in a trap he didn't understand? The town of Willow Creek erupted. By noon, news vans lined the streets. Headlines screamed, "Local man suspected in wife's brutal murder." Anna's parents, devastated, appeared on every channel. Her mother, clutching a photo of Anna, sobbed. "She was our angel. How could he do this?" The community, once so tight-knit, turned on Mark like vultures. Neighbors whispered about arguments they'd overheard, shouts late at night, doors slamming. One woman swore she saw Anna with a bruise on her arm weeks earlier. "He's not who we thought," they muttered. Oh, how quickly trust crumbles. But there was something else, something the police latched onto. Mark's construction company had been struggling. Financial records showed irregularities, large sums of money moved to unknown accounts. The lead detective, a grizzled man named Hargrove, smelled a motive. He killed her to cover up the missing money, he told reporters. Maybe she found out and threatened to expose him. The theory spread like wildfire. Mark, desperate, tried to explain, "I didn't touch the accounts, Anna handled the books." But his words fell on deaf ears. The money trail, the blood, the knife, it all pointed to him. Who wouldn't believe he was guilty? Let's pause for a second. No body was found, not a single trace of Anna beyond the blood. Doesn't that seem odd? In most murder cases, a body is the cornerstone, but here the sheer volume of blood gallons, it seemed convinced the police she couldn't have survived. A forensic expert later testified that no one could lose that much blood and walk away. Yet, no one asked the right questions. What if Anna wasn't dead? What if this was all a lie? The police were so focused on Mark, they never considered another possibility. And poor Mark was drowning in a sea of accusations. The media didn't help. Every night anchors dissected Mark's life. A man driven by greed, they called him. Social media exploded with hashtags #CourtJustice for Anna. Strangers posted vile threats, calling for Mark's head. Anna's best friend Lisa fueled the fire. He was controlling, she told a reporter, tears in her eyes. Anna was scared of him. Was it true? Or was Lisa part of something bigger? The town didn't care. They wanted blood for blood, and Mark was the perfect scapegoat. As Mark sat in a cold jail cell, his world collapsed. He stared at the gray walls, replaying that night. "I should have checked on her," he whispered to himself. His lawyer, a nervous rookie named Tom, tried to comfort him. "We'll fight this, Mark. The truth will come out." But Mark wasn't so sure. The evidence was crushing. The town hated him. And somewhere out there, Anna was alive, pulling the strings. How could one woman orchestrate such a cruel deception? And why $5 million? That's why. Money she'd stolen, money she'd killed to keep. This wasn't just a crime. It was a performance, a twisted play with Mark as the tragic hero. Every piece of evidence was a prop carefully placed by Anna's hand. The blood, stolen from a medical supply staged to perfection. The knife, a deliberate choice to frame her husband. The financial irregularities, her own doing pinned on Mark to seal his fate. Can you fathom the coldness of it all, to watch your husband suffer, knowing you're the puppeteer? As the case raced toward trial, one question lingered. How could the system be so blind? Mark's life hung in the balance, and the truth was buried under lies. Stick with me, because what happens next will blow your mind. Was Anna really gone forever? Or was she waiting, watching, ready to disappear with her millions? Let's find out. The courtroom in Willow Creek was a pressure cooker, packed with reporters, townsfolk, and Anna's grieving family. It was spring, 6 months after that blood-soaked night, and Mark Thompson stood trial for his life. The air buzzed with anticipation like a storm about to break. Everyone wanted justice for Anna, or so they thought, But this wasn't a trial. It was a crucifixion. Mark, pale and gaunt in his ill-fitting suit, sat beside his lawyer Tom, a rookie barely out of law school. Across the room, the prosecutor Evelyn Sharp, a shark in a tailored blazer, eyed Mark like prey. My God, the deck was stacked against him. Evelyn opened with a sledgehammer. "Ladies and gentlemen," she boomed, "Mark Thompson is a murderer. He stabbed his wife Anna in cold blood, hid her body, and thought he'd get away with it." She pointed to a blown-up photo of the crime scene, blood pooled on the hardwood splattered on the curtains. Gasps filled the room. She held up the knife, now in an evidence bag, its blade glinting under the lights. "This is the weapon," she said. Anna's blood, Mark's fingerprints. The jury, a mix of local shopkeepers and retirees, leaned forward, their faces grim. How could anyone argue with that? Then came the forensic expert, Dr. Helen Voss. She was clinical, her voice steady. "The volume of blood over 3 liters suggests catastrophic injury," she testified. "No one could survive that loss." The courtroom fell silent. No body. No problem. The blood was enough. Evelyn drove the point home. Mark disposed of Anna's body to cover his tracks. "He's not just a killer. He's calculating." The jury scribbled notes, their eyes darting to Mark. He shook his head, whispering to Tom, "That's not true." But who was listening? Next, the financial angle. Evelyn called a forensic accountant, Mr. Patel, who revealed the chaos in Mark's company books. $5 million moved to offshore accounts, he said, untraceable unless you know where to look. Evelyn spun it perfectly. Anna discovered Mark's scheme. She confronted him and he silenced her permanently. The jury gasped. Mark's jaw dropped. "I didn't touch the money," he shouted, his voice cracking. The judge banged her gavel. "Order," she snapped. But the damage was done. The jury saw a greedy, desperate man. Oh, how lies can twist the truth. Mark's defense was a disaster. Tom, sweating through his cheap suit, tried to poke holes. "No body means no proof of death," he argued. "Anna could have left." But Evelyn pounced, left with her blood painting the house, with her husband's fingerprints on the murder weapon. The jury smirked. Tom called a neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who admitted Mark was a nice guy, but confirmed the couple's arguments. "I heard them yelling," she mumbled. Strike one. Then Mark took the stand. Big mistake. Mark's voice trembled as he spoke. "I loved Anna. We fought sometimes, sure, but I'd never hurt her. That night she was upset about work. I went to bed. When I woke up, she was gone." His eyes welled up, tears streaking his face. "I don't know what happened to her." For a moment you could feel the room soften, but Evelyn was ruthless. "You expect us to believe Anna bled out and walked away," she sneered. "Where's her body, Mark? Where's your alibi?" He froze, his hands shaking. I don't know." The jury's faces hardened. Was this a broken man or a liar caught red-handed? Then came Anna's family. Her mother, Grace, took the stand, clutching a tissue. "Anna was our light," she sobbed. Mark changed her. She was scared, always looking over her shoulder. The jury wept with her. Anna's best friend Lisa piled on. "He was possessive," she said, her voice quivering. "Anna told me she felt trapped." True, or part of Anna's script. No one asked. The courtroom was a sea of emotion, and Mark was drowning. Can you imagine the weight of those lies? The media made it worse. Outside reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. "Monster of Willow Creek" screamed the headlines. Social media was a war zone. Fryham one post read with thousands of likes. The jury wasn't supposed to see this, but Willow Creek was small. Whispers crept in. Jurors heard their neighbors at the diner, their pastors at church, all demanding blood. How could they stay impartial? The town had already convicted Mark. The trial was just a formality. Tom's closing argument was weak. "There's reasonable doubt," he stammered. "No body, no witnesses, no proof." But Evelyn's closing was a masterpiece. "Mark Thompson thought he could outsmart us," she thundered. "He killed Anna to protect his secrets. Her blood cries for justice." The jury nodded, their minds made up. After 3 hours of deliberation, they returned. The foreman stood. "We find the defendant guilty." The room erupted. Anna's parents hugged, sobbing. Mark collapsed into his chair, his face blank. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. Death penalty. It was over." Or was it, "Let's talk about what no one saw"? Anna wasn't dead. She was alive, orchestrating this circus from afar. The blood staged, using medical supplies she'd swiped. The knife planted to frame Mark. The missing millions. Her doing funneled to a secret account with help from her lover, a hacker named Vince. Anna didn't just betray Mark, she weaponized the system against him. Every tear, every accusation was part of her plan to bury him. How could one woman be so cold? The trial exposed the system's flaws. The police never looked beyond Mark. Tom was outmatched. The jury was swayed by emotion, not facts. No body should have raised red flags, but the blood and money blinded everyone. What if they'd asked harder questions? What if they'd seen Anna's fingerprints, not on the knife, but on the whole damn scheme? Mark's life was stolen, not by evidence, but by a story Anna wrote. As Mark was led away in chains, the town cheered. Justice, they thought. But justice was blind. Stick with me because the next chapter is unbelievable. Mark's facing the execution chamber, and Anna's out there thinking she's won. But the truth has a way of clawing its way out. Can you guess what's coming? Let's go. The execution chamber was a sterile gray box, cold as death itself. On a crisp November morning, Mark Thompson was led inside, his wrists cuffed, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frail frame. 2 years had passed since Anna's disappearance, and now at 38, Mark looked a decade older. His eyes hollow, his spirit crushed. The room smelled of antiseptic, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of flies. A gurney stood in the center, leather straps dangling, waiting to claim him. My God. This was it, the end of a man who swore he was innocent. Guards guided Mark to the gurney, their faces blank, trained to show no mercy. His legs wobbled, but he held his head high, refusing to break. They strapped him down, wrists, ankles, chest, leather, biting into his skin. A doctor, a middle-aged woman with a tight bun, prepared the IV line. She avoided Mark's eyes as she swabbed his arm with alcohol, the cotton leaving a cold sting. The needle slid into his vein, a sharp prick that made him flinch. Clear fluid dripped through the tube, a prelude to the poison sodium thiopental, to knock him out pancuronium bromide, to paralyze potassium chloride, to stop his heart. Only seconds separated Mark from oblivion. A glass partition separated the gurney from the witness room. Anna's parents, Grace and Paul, sat in the front row, their faces carved with grief and rage. Grace clutched a rosary, her lips moving in silent prayer. Paul glared at Mark, his fists clenched. Behind them, reporters scribbled furiously, their pens scratching like vultures, picking at bones. A local pastor there to comfort Mark stood nearby, Bible in hand. The air was thick, suffocating every tick of the clock, a hammer blow. How could a man face death for a crime he didn't commit? The warden, a stern man in a gray suit, stepped forward. "Mark Thompson, you've been sentenced to death for the murder of Anna Thompson." "Do you have any final words?" Mark's throat tightened. He lifted his head, his voice hoarse but steady. "I didn't kill Anna. I loved her with all my heart. I don't know where she is, but I pray she's safe. To my family, I'm sorry. Find the truth, please." Tears rolled down his cheeks, glistening under the harsh lights. Grace sobbed, shaking her head. Paul muttered, "Liar." The reporters leaned closer, hungry for drama. The pastor bowed his head, whispering a prayer. Mark's words hung in the air, raw, desperate, true. The doctor adjusted the IV, her fingers steady. The warden nodded. "Proceed." The machine hummed, and the first drug began to flow. Mark's heart pounded, his chest heaving. He stared at the ceiling, a single thought looping in his mind. "I'm innocent. I'm innocent." The room seemed to close in the walls, shrinking, the lights blinding. His breathing quickened, shallow and ragged. 1 second, 2, the poison was inches away, creeping through the tube like a snake. Oh God, was this how it ended? Then chaos. A phone on the wall shrilled, piercing the silence like a scream. The warden froze, his hand raised to signal the next drug. A guard lunged for the receiver, his face pale. "What?" "Say that again," he barked. The room held its breath. Grace clutched Paul's arm, her eyes wide. The reporters stopped writing pens, hovering. The guard turned to the warden, his voice urgent. "Sir, it's Detective Hargrove. They found Anna. She's alive in Chicago under a fake name." A bank employee tipped them off. The words hit like a thunderbolt. Alive. Anna alive. The doctor's hand hovered over the IV, her eyes darting to the warden. "Stop!" he shouted, his voice cracking. The doctor yanked the needle from Mark's arm, a bead of blood welling up on his skin. Mark gasped, his chest heaving, tears streaming. What's happening?" he croaked. The witness room erupted. Grace screamed, "No, it can't be." Paul stood, his face ashen, fists trembling. Reporters shouted questions, their voices a chaotic roar. The pastor dropped his Bible, his mouth agape. Holy hell, the world was turning upside down. The guard relayed more a bank teller in Chicago, flagged a suspicious transaction, millions moved through an account tied to Anna's new identity. Cops tracked her to a penthouse. She's in custody. The warden's face was a mask of shock. He turned to Mark, still strapped to the gurney, his arm bleeding where the needle had been. "Hold everything," he ordered. The guards unbuckled Mark, their hands shaking. Mark sat up dizzy, his eyes wild. "She's alive," he whispered. "Anna's alive." His voice broke, a mix of relief and agony. Only seconds had saved him from death. Can you imagine the terror, the hope crashing together? The witness room was pandemonium. Grace collapsed into Paul's arms, sobbing hysterically. How is she alive?" she wailed. Reporters bolted for the door, phones pressed to their ears, shouting about the scoop of the century. The pastor muttered, "A miracle, a miracle." But was it? Or was it something darker? Anna wasn't just alive, she'd orchestrated this nightmare. The blood, the knife, the missing millions, it was all her. She'd played Willow Creek like a chessboard, sacrificing Mark to save herself. Why $5 million stolen from Mark's company, hidden with the help of her lover Vince? But her perfect plan had a flaw: greed. As Mark was led from the chamber, his legs barely held him. The guards supported him, their faces grim. Outside, news vans were already gathering cameras, flashing like lightning. The town that had condemned him would soon learn the truth. But what did it mean Anna, the victim, was the villain? Mark, the monster, was innocent. The system had failed, nearly killing a man for a lie. How could justice be so blind? This moment changed everything. Mark was alive, but his heart was scarred. Anna was caught, but her secrets were just beginning to unravel. What drove her to such evil? And what would happen when the truth came crashing down? Stick with me. This story's about to explode. The real question is, can a man forgive the woman who tried to bury him? Let's find out. The news hit Willow Creek like a tsunami. Anna Thompson, believed dead, mourned by her family, the woman whose murder nearly sent her husband to his grave, was alive. Not just alive, but living large in a Chicago penthouse, sipping martinis under the name Sarah Blake. It was November hours after Mark's execution was halted by a phone call that shook the world. A bank teller's sharp eye had unraveled Anna's web of lies, exposing a truth so twisted it left everyone reeling. My God, how could a woman betray her own husband like this? Detective Hargrove, still reeling from the call that stopped the execution, led the charge. The tip came from a Chicago bank teller, Emily Chen, who'd flagged a suspicious transfer, $2 million, wired from an offshore account to one tied to Sarah Blake. The name didn't match, but the account's metadata did link to Anna's old Social Security number. Hargrove's team moved fast, tracing the account to a luxury condo in downtown Chicago. At 10 a.m., SWAT stormed the penthouse. Anna, caught mid-breakfast, froze, her fork clattering to the floor. "It's over," Hargrove said, slapping cuffs on her wrists. Her face, once so familiar in Willow Creek, was cold, unrepentant. How could she live with herself? Back in Willow Creek, the news spread like wildfire. News vans clogged the streets, reporters shouting into cameras, Anna Thompson found alive. Husband innocent. The town square, once a shrine to Anna's memory, with candles and flowers, became a circus. Locals gathered, stunned, their whispers turning to shouts. "She's alive!" After all this, one shopkeeper cried. Anna's parents. Grace and Paul locked themselves in their home blinds, drawn unable to face the cameras. Grace, who'd wept for justice, now wept for shame. Paul, his voice hoarse, muttered to a reporter, "We trusted her. We were wrong. Oh, the sting of betrayal." At the Chicago precinct, Anna sat in a stark interrogation room, her designer dress a stark contrast to the gray walls. Hargrove leaned across the table, his eyes like daggers. "Talk, Anna. Why'd you do it?" She stared at the floor, silent, her manicured nails tapping nervously. Then, piece by piece, the truth spilled out. She'd been stealing from Mark's company for years. $5 million siphoned to offshore accounts with help from Vince Carter, her lover, and a hacker with a rap sheet. "Mark was clueless," she said, her voice flat. "He trusted me with the books." But when an audit loomed, Anna panicked. Exposure meant prison. So she crafted a plan, fake her death frame Mark, and vanish with the money. Can you fathom the coldness of it? Anna's confession was chilling. She'd swiped blood from a medical supply easy with her hospital volunteer gig and staged the crime scene, splashing it across their home. The knife. Taken from their kitchen, knowing Mark's fingerprints were on it. The arguments neighbors heard, she'd provoked them, screaming about money to paint Mark as volatile. "I needed him to look guilty," she admitted, no trace of remorse. Vince hacked the company accounts, pinning the transfers on Mark. The plan was perfect until Emily Chen's eagle eye caught that transfer. "I never thought they'd find me," Anna said, her voice barely a whisper. Holy hell, what a monster. Mark, now free but shattered, heard the news in a hospital room, recovering from the ordeal. His sister Ellen sat beside him, holding his hand. When Hargrove called with Anna's confession, Mark's face crumpled. "She did this, Anna," he whispered, tears welling. Relief washed over him. He was alive, vindicated, but agony followed. The woman he'd loved, married, built a life with, had tried to bury him. "I trusted her," he said, his voice breaking. "How could she hate me this much?" Ellen hugged him, sobbing. The scars on Mark's heart were deeper than the mark left by that needle. How do you heal from such betrayal? Willow Creek was in chaos. The diner, the church, the bar, everywhere, people dissected Anna's lies. "She fooled us all," one neighbor spat. Lisa, Anna's best friend, who'd called Mark controlling, vanished from town, humiliated. Some whispered she knew more than she'd let on. Social media, once a lynch mob against Mark, turned on Anna. #Justice. For Mark trended with posts calling her a black widow. Reporters dug deeper, uncovering Vince's role. A petty criminal turned hacker, he'd helped Anna build her new life, only to be caught when her greed betrayed them. What kind of woman sacrifices her husband for money? The legal fallout began. Anna faced charges: fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. Prosecutors called it a crime of unimaginable cruelty. Vince, nabbed in a sting operation, turned on Anna, spilling details for a plea deal. The $5 million mostly recovered was frozen, but the damage was done. Mark's company collapsed under the scandal, his life's work gone. Hargrove, haunted by the near-fatal mistake, pushed for reforms. "We failed Mark," he told a press conference. "No body, no rush to judgment, never again." But words couldn't erase the past. Could justice ever make this right? The town grappled with guilt. Those who'd cursed Mark now avoided his gaze. The pastor who'd stood in the execution chamber preached about forgiveness, but his words felt hollow. Anna's parents, broken, issued a public apology, but Mark couldn't face them. They believed her, he told Ellen. Everyone did. The system, the town, his own wife, all had failed him. Yet Anna's confession wasn't the end. Questions lingered. Why such hatred? Was it just money or something deeper? And what would happen when Anna faced her own judgment? This wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning. Anna's mask was off, her lies exposed, but the pain she'd caused rippled on. Mark was free, but freedom came at a cost. Willow Creek would never be the same. Stick with me because the story's not over. What happens when a man confronts the woman who tried to kill him? And can a town forgive itself for nearly destroying an innocent soul? Let's dive deeper. Let's dive. The courtroom in Chicago was a far cry from Willow Creek's small-town chamber, but the tension was just as suffocating. It was spring 2024, 6 months after Anna Thompson's arrest, and her trial was the talk of the nation. Anna sat at the defendant's table, her once glamorous aura replaced by a hollow stare. Her designer dress swapped for a plain gray suit. Beside her, Vince Carter, her hacker lover, slouched, his cocky grin gone. The charges were staggering: fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. The prosecution called it a diabolical plot to frame an innocent man for millions. My God, how could Anna face the world after such evil? Prosecutor Laura Bennett laid out the case with surgical precision. Anna Thompson didn't just steal $5 million, she declared. She orchestrated a lie that nearly killed her husband Mark to cover her greed. Evidence piled up: bank records tracing the stolen funds, Vince's hacked transfers, the medical blood used to stage the crime scene. Anna's confession, recorded on video, played for the jury, a cold, calculated recounting of her plan to frame Mark. The jury, a mix of Chicago professionals, watched in stunned silence. Vince, cutting a plea deal, testified against her, detailing their scheme. She said Mark was expendable. He admitted, his voice low. The courtroom gasped. Expendable. What kind of monster calls her husband that? Anna's defense was feeble. Her lawyer argued she was under duress from Vince, a claim the jury dismissed when emails surfaced showing Anna as the mastermind. Make sure Mark takes the fall, she'd written. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Guilty on all counts, the foreman announced. Anna didn't flinch, her face a mask. Vince got 7 years for fraud and conspiracy. Anna, life without parole for attempted murder, plus 20 years for fraud. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap. Justice at last. But could it heal the wounds she'd left behind? Back in Willow Creek, Mark was trying to rebuild a life shattered by betrayal. He moved into a small apartment, unable to return to the house where Anna's fake blood still haunted his dreams. His sister Ellen was his rock, but even she couldn't erase the pain. Mark saw a therapist twice a week, grappling with a storm of emotions: relief at his freedom, rage at Anna's cruelty, grief for the love he'd lost. I keep asking why he told Ellen, his voice raw. Did I mean nothing to her? Nights were the worst when nightmares of the execution chamber woke him drenched in sweat. How do you forgive someone who tried to kill you? Mark's struggle wasn't just internal. The town, once his accuser, now tiptoed around him. Neighbors who'd called him a monster left casseroles at his door. Their apologies unspoken, but heavy. At the diner, conversations hushed when he entered, eyes averted. The pastor who'd stood by during the execution invited Mark to church, but Mark declined. God didn't save me, he said bitterly. A bank teller did. Yet slowly he began to reconnect. A local carpenter, guilt-ridden for shunning him, offered Mark a job. It was a start, but the scars ran deep. Could he ever trust again? Willow Creek itself was fractured. The town square, once a place of vigils for Anna, felt tainted. We were fools, one resident admitted, at a town hall. Anna's parents, Grace and Paul, moved away, unable to bear the shame. Their public apology, read on local news, was met with mixed reactions. They pushed for Mark's death. A bartender grumbled, "Too little too late." Others, like Detective Hargrove, took action. Haunted by the case, he lobbied for reforms, mandatory reviews for no-body murder cases, better training for defense attorneys. "We can't let another Mark Thompson happen," he told a state panel. His words carried weight, sparking changes in protocol. But no reform could undo the past. The media frenzy didn't stop. True crime shows dissected Anna's plot, calling her the Black Widow of Willow Creek. Podcasts debated Mark's trauma, some praising his resilience, others questioning if he'd ever recover. Social media, now a battlefield of opinions, saw our justice. For Mark posts clash with debates about Anna's motives. Was it just money, one user asked, or did she hate Mark that much? The question gnawed at Mark too. He refused to attend Anna's trial, unable to face her. "I don't want her to see me broken," he told Ellen, but closure eluded him. How do you move on when your life was a lie? Anna behind bars showed no remorse. In a rare jailhouse interview, she shrugged off questions about Mark. "He'll get over it," she said, her voice chillingly calm. The reporter, stunned, pressed her. "You nearly killed him." Anna smirked. "Nearly isn't, actually." Her words, aired on national TV, sparked outrage. Mark, watching at home, turned off the screen, his hands shaking. "She's not human," he whispered. The town agreed, but anger couldn't erase the damage. Anna was gone, locked away, but her shadow lingered over Willow Creek. The legal system, too, faced scrutiny. The prosecutor who'd condemned Mark Evelyn Sharp retired quietly, her reputation tarnished. Mark's lawyer, Tom, left law haunted by his failure to save his client sooner. Hargrove, though, became a voice for change, testifying before lawmakers. "Our rush to judgment cost a man his life, almost," he said. His reforms gained traction, but for Mark they were cold comfort. His company was gone, his savings drained his heart in pieces. Justice had saved him, but it couldn't make him whole. As Willow Creek grappled with its guilt, Mark faced a choice: let Anna's betrayal define him, or find a way forward. Some days he leaned toward forgiveness, hoping to free himself. Others, rage consumed him, the memory of that needle, too raw. "I don't know who I am anymore," he admitted to his therapist. The town, too, searched for redemption, but the wounds were fresh. This wasn't just a case, it was a mirror forcing everyone to face their flaws. Can a man rebuild after such devastation? And can a community heal when it betrayed one of its own? Stick with me, because the final chapter will leave you speechless. Willow Creek was never the same after Anna Thompson's betrayal. The quiet town, once a postcard of small-town charm, now carried a scar, a reminder of how quickly trust could turn to treachery. It was summer 2025, over a year since Mark Thompson walked out of that execution chamber, saved by a miracle phone call. But freedom wasn't healing, not fully. This is the story's final chapter, a tale of broken hearts, hard lessons, and a man searching for light in the darkness. My God, what does it take to rebuild after such devastation? Mark's life was a patchwork of progress and pain. He worked as a carpenter now, his hands steady, but his heart unsteady. The job gave him purpose, a way to create after so much was destroyed. Yet every night he sat alone in his apartment, haunted by Anna's cold words. He'll get over it. Could he? Therapy helped, but some wounds cut too deep. "I loved her," he told his therapist, voice cracking. "That's the worst part. I still see the woman I married, not the monster she became." Forgiveness was a mountain he climbed daily, slipping often. Some days he wanted to hate her. Others he just wanted peace. How do you let go of a love that tried to kill you? The town, too, bore its guilt. The square, once filled with candles for Anna, now hosted a yearly vigil for justice reform, led by Detective Hargrove. "We failed Mark," he said at the first event, his voice heavy. "Let's make sure it never happens again." The reforms he'd pushed, stricter rules for no body cases, better defense training, were law, now a small victory. But for Willow Creek's residents, redemption was harder. They rebuilt the community center, naming it after Mark, a quiet apology. Neighbors who'd shunned him now nodded in passing, their eyes carrying shame. "We were wrong," one admitted at a town meeting, but words couldn't erase the chants of "killer" that once echoed. Can a community heal when it betrayed its own? Anna's shadow lingered. In prison, she faded from the headlines, her story, a cautionary tale on true crime shows. Her parents, Grace and Paul, never returned their absence, a wound in Willow Creek's heart. Mark never responded to their apology, unable to face the family that had condemned him. They lost a daughter, he told his sister Ellen, but I lost everything. The system, too, carried scars. The near-fatal error in Mark's case sparked national debates about the death penalty. No one should face a needle for a lie, Hargrove told lawmakers, his words fueling calls for abolition. But for Mark, it was too late to undo the trauma. How do you trust justice after it fails you? This case was more than a crime. It was a mirror exposing the fragility of truth. Mark Willow Creek, the system, all were tested. All were changed. Mark's journey wasn't over. Some days he found hope in small things, a sunrise, a kind word. Others, the darkness crept back. But he kept going, a testament to resilience. The town learned to listen, before judging, to question, before condemning. And Anna. She'd live out her days in a cell, a prisoner of her own greed. What legacy does a lie leave behind? If this story gripped you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Join us for more tales of truth, betrayal, and redemption. Your support fuels these stories, diving deep into the human heart. As we close, I leave you with this. If you faced a betrayal like Mark's, could you forgive, or would you let it define you? Think about it, and let's keep exploring the shadows together.